Where am I? Was it all a dream? Was it all a dream, Stephen? Am I home? Am I in Kansas?
So, Stephen, I was trying to stay awake longer last night after 24 hours of travel and then before that a whole day of being up in Kenya in Nairobi.
Brutal.
And so I sat on the sofa and I put on a show, but I think I was zonking out real fast. So I turned it off and I sat there and I think I fell asleep for an hour. And when I woke up, I startled the shit out of myself. I couldn't place what camp I was at in Kenya. I was like, where am I? I'm like, this doesn't look familiar. And then I finally scared the shit out of myself. I realized I was at home.
There's way too many expensive things in here. This is definitely not Africa.
Grand piano? Pictures on the wall? What?
Pictures of myself? What?
What is going on? Where am I?
Welcome back.
I'm tired.
I am actually surprised you're not incredibly jet lagged at this point. Because when it was daytime here, it was essentially nighttime there. And you did that for, 12 days straight?
I don't know. I think 10 days. Yeah, 10 days because we left on the 30th, 10, 11 days. But I did prioritize sleep over editing and working, you know, to make sure that there was 6.5 to 7 hours a night. I mean, it's a nonstop slog, and we'll get to the slog of what we do and how it all worked when we get to that section, because there's a lot to get to in RAWtalk 131.
It reminds me of press trips where you basically just don't sleep and you edit all night and you live off of 3 hours of sleep the next day. It's brutal.
Yeah, I'll talk about this when we get into it, like who was on the trip and that Sony paid for the entire trip. Oh, that's a joke. It's a joke.
Meanwhile, you guys had all Canon gear pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, it's just funny when people need to try to find conspiracy theories for why people who paid for their own freaking trips that just come up with these asinine things while they sit on their fucking asses at their own houses trying to come up with some bullshit to knock other people down who are doing stuff like, oh, Sony must have paid for this trip. Nah.
Were people saying that it was a paid press trip?
Oh, yeah, you know, questioning some things. People always come up with stuff and try to question what you're doing based off of the people that are there.
If anything, it would be a Canon trip because Vanessa, who was on the trip, spoiler alert, she's an explorer of light. Why would she be on a Sony or Nikon press trip?
Yes, that would work out real well for her Explorer of Light Canon contract if she was taking money from Sony to go on a trip. It's just so annoyingly frustrating, or just annoying. Let's just call it annoying. It's not even frustrating. It's just annoying that people have to sit on their asses at home and try to tell you that you're doing something that you're not actually doing, and then you have to not even defend yourself because you don't want to involve yourself with bullshit, but someone has to try and bring bullshit up, which is just the nature of the internet these days. And a lot of discussions of that on the trip, you know, having me, Manny, Vanessa there, because we're all in the same boat and we all handle things differently. Like, I've come up with my method, which is don't even read most of the stuff and just go about doing your daily and don't worry about social media as much. And Vanessa gets into the algorithm and I need to do this. And Manny is always questioning. And I just find it's best to not even worry about it. Do what you think is right and move on from there.
It does go to show, though, how different all of us creators really are. I mean, like you said, you guys are completely 3 different types of people when it comes to online video creating.
We all have our different ideas and thoughts for how to do things.
But yours are right, though. That's the big thing to remember.
Generally, I sit there and say that, but the moral of the story is we all paid for our own trips and we just shared it with the world on social media. Doesn't mean someone's paying for it. Now, doesn't mean we don't have sponsored videos coming out of the trip to help cover the costs or to more than cover the costs, which is what we do. That's the whole point. If we're traveling places, we might as well reach out to people like Ace Pro 2. The Insta360 that I took this year, the Ace Pro 2, is going to be a product showcase, just like the product showcase we did last year for the Ace Pro. It's just a way that we can fund what we do, make money, and bring quality content to the people. I don't have to justify that to anybody. We do what we need to do to make our business work, and we all do what we think is right. So yeah, there will be that. Though you and I haven't even talked about. So we haven't talked about the trip yet. you and I.
I really know nothing. I mean, you came home yesterday in the afternoon, and that's really it. I mean, I talked to you for 20 minutes, if that, and we didn't really recap the trip. It was more about issues of you flying back and stuff like that, which we'll get into. But yeah, I really haven't talked to you.
That's normal. We're in the middle. I mean, I have better LTE we have LTE out of the camp. In the camp, we're in like dead zones. Just dead zones. Okay. So much to get to. Talk about Steven's photo shoot. Steven's been here by himself, working from home, doing what he does. Dan, I don't know what the hell Dan does. Steven would have talked to Dan. Dan would have done photo
We
news
were
fix.
editing the entire time.
I was busy. Out there, not even paying attention. Steven was in charge.
Yeah, I mean, before you left, we ramped up production and filmed, 5, 6 videos before you left? So
something like that.
We've got a lot in the queue right now that we are attempting to get done before me and Dan peace out before the new year. So we've got a lot coming up. Like, I know Dan just finished up the A12 versus the A93 comparison video. I'm about to finish the autofocus comparison between the A12 and the R1. And then we have a sensor breakdown where we compare the R1 versus the R3 sensor and do a dynamic range test, do a high ISO test. Have some really, really interesting findings in that one. And then we also did a comparison between the A1 and the A12. We had the Africa Gear video come out, a photo news fix, the RF 70-200Z versus the original 70-200 RF. A ton of videos that we've been working on, and we still have a lot to finish up.
Well, do you need any more autofocus clips between R1 and A12? Because
no, I have 4 hours that I had to break down into like a 3-minute montage.
Yeah, well, now I've got stuff from Kenya of lions.
Hey, if it's more of a direct comparison,
dude,
I will gladly use it.
I got direct comparisons. Literally, you'll see this on 360 footage when we do the Ace Pro 2 thing. I'm skipping ahead just for a second. I sit there in the back of the vehicle with an A12 with a 400-2.8, a R1 with a 400-2.8, an R5 Mark II with a 100-300. But there was a point where this cheetah was doing the same thing for a while it was eating an Impala. It was eating breakfast, but it was sitting under a tree and it would sit up. So I banged that out with the EVF recorder with the R1 on there with the 400. Then it did the same thing. I put the A12, the recorder on the A12. As long as it's all saved, I didn't back it up while I was away because I didn't take that box is just so slow. I need to do it here. To offload the footage.
But are these essentially static shots that you're getting? I mean, is there much autofocus going on if they're just sitting there eating?
It's just showing you where the autofocus. I did it with elephants.
I'm looking more for like if you have a stampede running at you or a lion running or a cheetah running and you're trying to track. That's where you're really pushing the limits of these brand new cameras.
Well, I'll tell you where I push the limits. Tiger cubs, a month and a half old.
Oh,
hiding in the grass. How does the IAF do behind blades of grass?
Tigers or lions?
Well, I said lions.
You said tiger cubs.
Well, lion cubs. Okay. There's no tigers
That's
there, Stephen. Why are you saying the wrong thing?
That's why I'm correcting you.
Stop saying the wrong thing. Okay. Lion cubs. Sure. Thank you. Lion cubs in the grass. So that was hard. I will tell you that there were times with both systems that I needed to turn them onto spot AF and then turn off detection of the animal, and also sometimes switch into single shot because I had to tell the system where to focus for both systems because of the grass.
Well, we found that to be somewhat of an issue when you were photographing the one guy swinging the golf club, right? During the press trip for the Canon R1. On occasion, when the sand would come up in front of his face, it would focus more on the sand, and whatever was in front of him, I'm saying like that could mimic blades of grass.
Yeah.
Versus, focusing on him, where sometimes the box would be on him, but still be slightly front focused on the sand or blades of grass.
I mean, there was just weird things with the autofocus for the A12 where you're like, it doesn't look like it's finding the eye, but then you go back and look at the picture on the back of the screen and you have the box highlighted and it has this super tiny thing right on the eye. You're like, well, why did you show me this big box, but you actually did find the eye? I just don't know what's weird and what's not. I will tell you they both focused extremely well, and then they both had issues in the same exact spots, but then they were like behind the blades of grass, occasionally it would find the eye behind the blades of grass. You're like, holy shit, it's literally there's blades of grass crisscrossing and it found it for both of them and then missed for both of them too.
And I assume you had settings pretty much on default. You don't really mess with your AF settings, right?
For most of them, I I had them where the system would want them.
Like auto case setting on the R1, in the balance 3 setting on the A12.
I have no idea where I had the A12 at this point.
If you had no idea, that means you didn't adjust it.
Yeah, there's just so many nuances to all of it, and whether they work or not is also...
I will say from editing this A12 versus R1 comparison AF video, I think the biggest change that we're seeing now with these cameras, they're much stickier if a subject comes in front of the subject that you're actually actively photographing.
Yes.
Which is great. When you're tracking a soccer player or a football player, it remains locked on much longer and much better than the previous systems. And that's for both, I would say.
Yeah, Vanessa had that when a cheetah went behind brush and then came out of the brush, it picked it up instantly.
Yeah, makes sense.
So they're both great systems. I'll talk more about that later. So there's so much to talk about, but we should get into what I had Vanessa on last week.
Yes.
We were in Kenya at one of the camps, and Vanessa and I sat there and we had like a live audience of the other people on the trip there listening.
You probably loved that.
Well, my dynamic changes when there's laughing and you can hear people, so I tend to go deeper.
You do.
I tend to go deep.
It's not fun being on the other side of that conversation when you have a live audience. I'll tell you that.
What did you think of the show with Vanessa?
It was good. I thought you were very entertaining. Like I said, when you have a live audience, you're much funnier.
I think one person.
I love that Manny was not in the room, by the way, and I guarantee he made that choice so he would not be called out by you live, because you would have definitely called him out.
Well, we talked about it, and then we went back, and Vanny was just sitting there on the bed editing when we got back to the room, and he was done. But now Vanessa and I, we have a pretty good. She likes to poke at me and try to poke the bear. It was interesting. I mean, she had to bring up the penis jokes and the Hebe thing. I can't believe she was such a whatever she was about Hebes. Unbelievable.
Some of the stuff you say, no comment.
A lot of it is just to see what the reaction is in the room.
And usually it's a very awkward reaction.
Yeah. It was funny because Matt would laugh. He was sitting over there. Jason left. Anyway, that was only day 3, I think. And we still had 5 or 6 more days to go.
I think that's my only gripe is I kind of wish you guys did it more towards the end of the trip to kind of recap most of the stuff that happened, where you were only, like you said, 2-3 days into it at that point.
All right. So I don't even know where the hell I'm going with this. I am so lost right now. I am really lost with my brain getting back into this thing. But let me just bring up book 2 is coming to an end, the Kickstarter, because there's like 7 days at the time of recording this until it's completed. There's 490 backers so far. We're just shy of 70,000. My personal goal is to get to at least 80. I mean, I wanted to get to 100 as like a stretch goal. If you haven't backed it yet, now is the best time to get the best offer. You can go to bit.ly/FroBook2, where when you make a pre-order of the book, you are guaranteeing yourself a pack of 3 photographic 4x6 prints with the chance of getting all access passes in there. Right now, there's 2 all access passes up for grab. Think of it, one of them might be good for a Fro boot camp here in Philly. I mean, that's $1,000 value right there. If you do grab that, that might be one. Maybe it's a shopping spree at Ounce Camera. But when you do pre-order the book, you do get 500 entries into the Super Huge or Mega Camera giveaway for 2025, which is good for up to $4,999 of spending at AllensCamera.com. So that all goes away when the Kickstarter ends. There will be no more packs of cards with all access passes available. So now's the time to go to bit.ly/FroBook2 and back book 2 if you haven't.
Any takers for the $10,000 spend a day with Jared in Philadelphia option?
I don't think so. Not yet, Steven.
Unbelievable. I can't believe that. I thought that would go first.
Not yet. That didn't go yet. Not just yet. So
$491. We just sold a book.
Oh yeah? What are we up to?
For $67,333.
Yeah, I think I made it go a little longer than I wanted, but whatever. We'll do the final push. I know we've lost a few people have canceled their orders.
I was going to say, I did notice that the numbers were ticking back here and there, and I was surprised that people were actively canceling.
Yeah, well, so people don't get charged until it ends, so they can kind of make changes and get rid of it. Don't do that. But it is what it is. It is what it is. It's going to happen here and there, and I'm sure somebody will want a refund before it ships anyway. But the book is. I saw the proof right before I left just a printing proof of just a piece of paper from the machine.
How's it look?
It looks, the colors look good. The contrast does not. They need to up the contrast by plus 1.5 roughly, or 1.75 to 2 on the contrast
They need to
level,
go
and
to
it will be
100.
spot on. Nah, it will be spot on, but the colors were really good because it just needs to be thicker blacks. I want thicker blacks. I want my blacks thick.
Would you say it's more of like a muted matte black now?
It was a little flatter than I wanted.
Okay.
And the Bernie book was printed the way I wanted it.
Yeah.
So they were supposed to match that. I just don't understand why, when they send me a proof, why don't they just do a bunch of different gradients and get it done in one fell swoop and be like, which gradient do you like? This is what we've got. So now it just stretches out longer, which is a pain in the ass.
I did just see the final PDF of the entire book layout, and I think it looks great. The proofreading is officially done at this point, so I think you're pretty much ready to print.
Yeah, we are. Like, we're at that point. So it's just getting the little stuff done that needs to get done, and then hope for the best and get it here. And hopefully there's no tariffs on it.
Now, once you make that call and you're ready to print, how long will it take for you to actually get the books in your hands?
I think they said the end of February. And if it doesn't get delayed, right? It goes to print, and then it sits there, and then the holidays are here. And you know how Europeans are when it comes to holidays. They don't work. And then we got to get, they got to do the binding and everything. And then it gets packed and shipped. It gets sent here on a boat. And hopefully the boat gets here, and hopefully there's no tariffs at that point, because it's going to be after the election. Because I would get fucked hard if there's tariffs added to the book. You know, that comes out of my pocket because I haven't been able to, you know how tariffs work. It's a tax, and then I pass the tax along to other people, so the price goes up. But in this case, I can't, because it's pre the tariff being added. So that's where I'm at. So hoping to get it without that happening. But the book is basically there. So if you want to back it, please do. bit.ly/FroBook2. The price will go up after the Kickstarter is over. You won't be able to back it at the same price. It will be more expensive, and you will not get the cards if you wait any longer.
Have you unpacked your gear yet, by the way?
No. When I got home yesterday, I thought I would come to the studio and work for like a couple hours before going to the gym, but I opted to sit in my bathtub, then take a shower, wash my hair for the first time in the 12 days, and I ended up going to the gym to play squash with myself.
I don't blame you at all. You had said you were going into the studio, and I'm like, man, you just spent like 20 plus hours traveling, and you want to go right back to work?
Well, I want to see my images, dude. I want to see my images on a big screen and not a little screen.
Do you find it a lot different editing with your XDR display versus the laptop screen?
It's hard to say because I haven't sat here yet on this trip. Yes, it's much harder because everything's smaller. I would have liked to have my Apple Vision Pros to put on to edit in.
I thought you did have the Apple Vision Pro.
No, I opted to leave them home.
Oh.
I had to leave them home because I had to meet a weight requirement, and they're just too big. Even the pouch that I have, which is pretty small, I couldn't take it on the plane. I had to cut stuff that I was taking.
I would have taken that out of the gear video. I didn't realize you didn't bring it.
Didn't know. But
Yeah.
I didn't know. I mean, there's just things you learn. I thought I was going to take it, and then at the point, it was like, where's it going to go?
Was there anything else that you couldn't pack that you planned on initially taking?
I cut out a bunch of shirts. I cut out a couple of accessories that added extra weight. The point is, we needed to get a weight. We had a weight restriction of 67 pounds per person, per total. That's cameras and luggage. And I was over 90 pounds.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
And that's not counting the extra weight that I had for Troy and Katie's cameras that I gave them.
I was
Troy
going to
had
say,
to
is it just
carry.
that? Wow.
Well, Troy had to carry my 400 2.8 Sony because I gave him a bag with that, which had his R1 and the 100 to 500. So I was able to give them stuff. But my weight alone, my backpack weighed 44 pounds or roughly 21 kilos.
Damn.
That had all my stuff. Separate was the 400 2.8. The 100 to 300 was in the backpack. That was that. Between my camera bags, just my camera bags weighed over 60 pounds together. And then I ended up switching to a small Patagonia bag, smaller than last year, took out a bunch of shirts, took out my raincoat, decided not to put my boots in the bag, which would have added weight, and didn't even take sneakers, just took my boots, and I shaved weight. I was probably at 90 pounds for my stuff. But the good news is, Troy didn't have a lot of gear, right? So that shaved weight and gave me some poundage. Katie didn't have a lot. The couple of the baseballers, they didn't have a lot because they didn't have cameras. So we were fine in the end, but I was a little worried about the weight. Yeah, it evened out because we're on little airplanes and you pay extra. We paid extra for extra freight, but it ended up being okay in the long run.
Was there anything you wish you brought that you didn't bring?
No, I was good on that.
Good.
I ended up being good on that. I will say that the Troy's R3 has to go back because a button broke.
Really?
Yeah. One of the joysticks on the back got stuck in. What I think happened is it must have been kind of more loose in a bag, and it wasn't in a holder, in the think tank, and it must have jammed against something hard, and it got jammed in. He's like, why is my focusing point all the way at the bottom and I can't move it? And I got it. He gave it to me because he was in another car. I took it and I pressed on it. It wasn't going anywhere, and I basically ripped the button out.
Did you have to disable that button then?
Well, it was supposed to be. What I couldn't figure out was how to get the touch sensitive joystick to allow him to move the focusing point.
You have to go into the orange menu and turn the smart controller on because Oh, that's weird.
But it wouldn't work. I couldn't figure it out.
Unless that got jammed too. But for some reason, it's not enabled by default as like an active joystick, which is annoying.
I couldn't figure it out, but then I realized he shouldn't have an active focusing point anyway because I have it on. I'll explain when I get to those guys how I set their cameras up for success. But anyway, I ripped the button out. You can actually, there's a little button in there so you can move that to move a joystick.
That's funny.
But I'm going to end up sending it back for Sony Canon to fix and clean. I mean, the shit's all dirty now anyway from all the dust, which is insane.
Well, all I ask is when you take out all of your gear and put it back on the shelves and do all of that stuff.
It's not going on any shelf.
Well, you have like the A12 and stuff like that and all the lenses that will go upstairs. Do not destroy the upstairs because I finally cleaned and organized the studio and production area. And I think it's time for a full-on studio tour walkthrough at some point, probably more than New Year at this point. But everything is legit organized now, thankfully. It only took over a year.
Yeah, well... I can't guarantee anything.
It's like letting a freaking bowl out in a china shop, man.
Most of this stuff is meant to be down here anyway in my space. It's my gear.
Okay, good.
It's my gear. So yeah, getting the gear is always interesting. You got to go through security. Oh, right off the bat in Philly, I had a fuckhead of a TSA agent. She was a fuckhead. Like a fuckhead. Troy filmed this happening. Of course, we go through security. I'm pre-check. She asked, like, my bag gets pulled, which is normal. It's the 44-pound bag.
Every time.
And so when she's carrying it, I'm like, hey, it's extremely heavy. Because someone was like, you might need the cart. And she's like, no. And that was another TSA agent. So she carries it over. She places it down. And I'm like, hey, before you go, and I always do this with TSA agents. I'm like, this is all my camera gear. It's very expensive. If there's something that you need to see or how to access it, I can direct you on how to do everything. I'm like, can I show you? She's like, absolutely not. And I'm like, what? Okay. And I'm like, what do you need to get to? I need to get in your bag. Well, there's multiple sections in the bag. She didn't say what she needed to get to. I'm like, my laptop is in the front. And so now you're smushing it because you have it laying face down. And then she's like, do you want me to take everything out? Do you want to get back in line and put everything in the thing? And I'm like, excuse me. All I asked you for was, would you like me to show you how to get access to the bag?
How was your tone, though? How did you say
My tone
it?
was fine.
You tend to have a condescending tone.
Fuck you. Troy, no, fuck you.
You do.
Troy and Katie were both standing there, and I was very calm about it, but she took a fucking tone. I'll just say, she's a black woman, and she took attitude with me.
Yeah, probably the afro.
Like major. And yes, there's certain types of TSA agents. I've had black guys like slam my nuts. I've had older white guys, which are much less aggressive. I had white guys that be aggressive as well. But I just want to paint the picture. She was a black woman who got straight up attitude right off the rip.
Probably because you're a Hebe.
Yeah, probably because I'm a Hebe. But she didn't say what she needed to get to. So she's like, do you want it? And she started to get, I'm like, ma'am, I'm trying to just suggest, like, I don't know what you need to get to because you didn't say what you need to get to. She's like, all I need to get to was the laptop. I'm like, well, if you said that, I would have told you how to unzip the top of the bag. And she called over a manager. She's like, I can't deal with this. And I'm like, so the manager guy comes over and I'm like, sir, all I said, and I did it in this exact voice. I said, no, Steven, stop fucking smirking at me. This is the exact fucking voice. I said, all I asked her was, if there's something you need me to show you in the bag, this is all my camera gear. It's very sensitive stuff. I can direct you how to access the bag and look at everything. So instead, she's taking every lens out and putting it in a bin. And so he understood, because I think he's probably dealt with her before. And so he's like, I'm like, can you lay those lenses down that you have standing up that you're about to carry in a container and walk and put through the machine? I'm like, can you just lay it down so it's more safe? And then at the end, he's like, everything's fine. He's like, instead of moving it, can you just go over here and pack your bag again? And I was like, yeah, no problem. Because he came over and I was just like, look, I didn't take a tone with her at all. She just flat out went off right off the rip. And so he understood it, because I guarantee you that it's not the first time that woman has had an issue.
Or she was just having an incredibly bad day and took it out on you.
I don't know, but Troy, of course, had to post on Instagram right off the bat. Troy had some funny stories.
Troy is funny.
Yeah.
He is a funny guy.
He could be annoying too after a while, but he did have some funny stories that people followed. He did open up his Instagram for people, and then he quickly turned it back to private.
Yeah, because for the Africa Gear video, I was going to rip some of the stories or posts that he did, because he did a lot of behind the scenes like video of you, but he turned his account back to private, so I couldn't do that.
I can get you everything.
It didn't matter at that point.
No, but he... Anyway, that was just getting through security in Philly. Getting everything on the plane was fine. Everything else after that point was fine. The small airplanes were fine. Flying the way that we flew was totally fine. It made the trip so much better sitting in, we'll call it business class, because it's not technically first class anymore, but lay flats, food, meals, extra space, blankets, pillows,
grapes,
lay flat, sleep. There might have been a grape tray, but no, we got to... sleep, which is great. The first part of the trip to London, I slept probably 3.5 hours. Then we had a little bit of a layover before getting on another airplane, another British Air flight, sitting in first class for 9 hours.
Were Troy and Katie with the peasants in the back, or were they also business class?
No, they were in the same cabin, and so were a couple of the other in London. In London, a couple of the baseballers and Jason Hanna, the other photographer. We all met there, and so was Robert. Robert, one of our readers who went on the trip as well. He was also up there in the business class.
Is that mainly the biggest expense of the trip? Is the ticket, the flight?
Yeah, I mean the trip itself is slightly more expensive, but yeah, I mean Troy, I know, used points, and Katie used points. I made it a business expense because, obviously it's a business expense.
It's a write-off.
But sitting up there is certainly a hell of a lot easier, because Manny sat on his flight, which went to Germany, in peasant class, which was like, he's like, that was horrible. That was horrible. I'm like, yeah, it was horrible. So he rebooked on the way home. He changed to first class, which is just, or business class. You just have to.
What's the difference in terms of pricing? Is it that much more expensive?
Yeah, it's like 4 or 5 times as much.
Jesus.
No, I mean, you could do the round trip for like $1,800 to $2,200 in peasant class for the 4 flights, or you could spend like $6,000 or so. Dude, for me, like, we're getting paid, right? I'm not, Sony's paying for the whole thing. So I'm basically the money that I generate from making an Ace Pro 2 video or other stuff goes directly to my comfort on the trip. It pays for the trip. Like, I don't know that I actually make money on the trip, because
I would say you break even, right?
I get close to breaking even, or I end up, I end up making a little bit when I do that, but it's really about comfort. Like, if you show up and you're tired as shit because you had a bad flights, and it didn't go, like, for me, food, it just doesn't go well. And so when you have the ability to travel like this, I mean, I take it. And so to me, that's important. And it was really beneficial and helpful. The other thing is, what I didn't miss out on, I didn't care that I didn't have my Apple Vision Pro. I didn't even put my headphones in for the trip. I didn't listen to music. I didn't listen to podcasts. I didn't read books. I got as close to raw dogging as you can raw dog a trip.
Just stared at the screen.
Well, the good news is there were games to be played.
Oh.
But guess what game they had that I played for hours?
Pinball.
Monopoly.
Oh, I've never played digital Monopoly.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same as the game.
Sure,
Four-player
yeah.
Monopoly was available on British Air. Wasn't on the American Airlines flight on the last flight home, so I was upset. I tried to download it on my phone.
Were you actively playing like someone else on the plane, or was it just
No, it was
AI?
a computer. You were playing three other computer players.
That's cool.
But damn, dude, it was like for hours I was playing this thing, and it was great. I had fun.
I love Monopoly, but it also takes absolutely forever when you have a lot of people playing.
Yeah.
So I never play it.
It was great. I wish there was a 2x mode that would allow it to speed up. No, because like certain things took too long. I'm like, great, I'm done. I know. And then the other people roll their dice. And then I'm like, just fucking go to fast forward mode. It's a computer. Like, make it go quicker.
If you were like Adam Sandler and Click, you would just be hitting the fast forward button in life 24/7. You would.
That's not
Everything
good. I
needs
know,
to be
that's
2x.
terrible. That's my brain.
Well, it's patience. That's what it comes down to. You have none of it.
I have patience. I was patient on the airplane, Steven, for 8 hours.
You just said you wanted to fast forward people playing the game.
I wanted the game to go faster. I didn't say I wanted the flight to go faster. I wanted the game to go faster. Do you know what pissed me off on British Air? It was, what was it, our third flight. So coming home, by the way, British Air's first class just seemed a little better than American. Like the staff seemed nicer, and they, I don't know, it just seemed a little better. But that's neither here nor there. This
Was it because they were British?
Hello. Would you like a spot of tea?
Are you going on holiday?
Oh, hey. I don't know. But something really pissed me off with the British Airways announcement. This guy, Steve, he's like, I'm the slightly balding guy, is what he said on the air. But at the end of the trip, he was at the end of the flight, he's just like, and we want to, this time of season, wish everybody who celebrates Christmas a Merry Christmas.
Don't they usually say a Happy Christmas?
Whatever the fuck they said. And I said, and fuck all you Jews. Basically, it was
Except
if you're
for the
not,
Hebe in the back.
Yeah. If you're celebrating, no, in 5A, because I was up front. If you're celebrating anything other than Christmas, go fuck yourself, is what I took from that announcement. Because I looked right back at Katie over the wall partition, because she was behind me and there was a wall partition. And I was like, did that sound weird to you? She's like, yeah. I'm like, did that sound like go fuck yourself, everybody else, if you're not into Christmas? And she's like, yeah, it's exactly what it sounded like. And that's how it came across.
That's how it should be.
If you don't celebrate this,
What?
go fuck yourself. Huh? Fuck you, Steven.
All you had to do was just say simply Happy Holidays.
That's what I said. I said,
easy.
this time of year, no matter what you celebrate, we want to wish you a happy holidays. And that makes me sound like a woke fuck who wants to talk about pronouns. But no, it's a lot different than pronouns, right? It's just say happy. There's other people that celebrate other shit. It's not just about Christmas. You're basically saying that it's Christmas or nothing. Because everybody else doesn't matter. I don't care if you're a Muslim, an Arab, a Jew, an other.
Should have walked off the plane like flaunting your necklace. Like,
I didn't wear my necklace. I was not taking that the trip. It was just too much to wear. I'm like, I'm not wearing this thing on the trip. I even debated not putting it on today after not wearing it for 2 weeks. I'm like, fuck this. Because it's not like a religious thing for me. It's a big fuck you to all the people. Oh, by the way, Syria fell while we were away. That happened. Some guy killed a United Healthcare CEO while we were away. That happened too.
There's drones everywhere. That happened.
Drones?
I don't know. They're saying New Jersey, there's like drones flying all around. They can't figure out who they are or what they are.
Oh, UFOs?
Well, they don't say UFOs anymore. What's the new word they say? The new term?
Unidentified.
UAP is what they call them now. Unidentified aerial phenomena.
Whatever. There's no UFOs. Get over it. It's probably a drone flying.
Don't tell Tom DeLonge that.
Who are you?
And I'm so sorry.
I cannot sleep. I cannot sleep tonight.
Where are you?
I don't know.
1 week after listening to Blink-182.
1 week after listening to Blink-182. 1 month after listening to Blink-182. 1 year. Who are ya? That's one of my favorite ones.
It is good.
Anyway, fuck Steve on British Air for his lack of empathy for anybody other than the Jesus-loving folk.
Yeah. So let's get into the trip.
So yeah, let's now get into the trip 38 minutes into the episode, as I talked about. So Manny was on the trip. Vanessa was on the trip. my buddy Troy, Katie. We had this guy Dusty, who's a photographer, sports photographer. We had Jason Hanna, who's the Royals team photographer. Matt Dirksen, who's the Cubs team photographer. We had this kid Brandon, who's a Getty photographer. It's like all photographers. Robert, who I would have shared some of his stuff from the trip, who did a good job. And we had two baseball players, Marco Scudero and Royals catcher Salvador Perez were there. Now, they weren't there to shoot. The funny thing is, Salvi said he wasn't going to shoot, and Jason, he was in the car with Jason because there's 3 vehicles, 4 in a car. Jason said within 20 minutes, Salvi was saying, yo, give me that camera. They just planned on watching and enjoying and having a good time.
Oh, wow.
And then being a competitor like he is, he took to the camera, and now he's going to go
begin.
When he gets home, he's going to buy an A12 probably.
Really?
And well, he can. Jason shoots Sony, so that's what he was using when he was there. He's not going to buy A1s.
He got that into it where he's like, I want to take pictures now.
He loved it. He loved it.
Specifically just the wildlife part of it or the actual taking photos?
These guys are competitive and they love challenges. So
wow.
He loved it.
Very
Salvi
cool.
was cool. And, there's so much that happened and it's so hard to talk about everything.
Sure.
There's so much. And I took the R1, the R5 II, the A1 II, and if you saw the video, you saw everything that I took for the most part. I found it the most interesting that I had Troy and Katie going, and they were forbidden from using anything other than a real camera. And so they've been practicing. Troy had an EOS R before that I let him borrow, and Katie was using an R6 Mark II, and they were using 24 to 105s to learn. On the trip, they got R3, because I wasn't using 2 R3s, right? I'm using the new cameras. So they got my old R3s.
I mean, the nice thing is the R6 Mark II essentially has the R3 focusing system, so it's a pretty easy step up from the R6 II to that. However, the EOS R, I mean, that's like going from a Toyota Camry to a fucking Ferrari for Troy.
Well, so I chose R3s for them and 100 to 500 RFs. Talk about a versatile lens. I mean, there's times I'm looking at Katie's work going, motherfucker, like fuck,
dude. I know you're like 2.8 or bust, but like you could do a lot of damage with a versatile lens like that.
I will show you her stuff. I mean, what I will say is you could look at her photos, and I could have sent those to my dad, and he'd think they were mine.
Sure,
like you could send them to most people because, like, I think she took really well to listening to me over the past couple of years about photography and looking at my work and understanding it, right? Before I get into that, let me tell you how I set the cameras. R3s were set to auto ISO, all-encompassing full AF, so that was the camera selecting the autofocus point. Aperture was set to the widest aperture, even though it's a variable aperture lens, and they had to control shutter speed fast or slow. Other than that, it's basically shooting in auto.
Any exposure comp settings for the auto ISO?
No, except for when Troy accidentally tapped his exposure comp to 1.7.
Oh, why does everything look really bright?
He couldn't figure it out, and he wasn't in the car with me, so I had to fix it after, and then I showed him, and then he fixed it.
The reason I ask is because I always feel that Canon specifically tends to overexpose by a third of a stop when you're in auto modes, usually. And obviously depending on what metering mode you're on, but evaluative tends to go a little brighter than I prefer it to be.
Yeah, well, I just left it, and everything's close enough. Like Troy's exposures were off for his first shoots, like by a stop or two. And the reason was
over.
He hit ISO by it. He turned the ISO dial. He took it out of auto ISO.
So remember I was telling you before you left, if you set like the C1 or C2 buttons and
set.
Forced it, all he had to do was just turn it back and he could have everything reset.
That didn't work. When you turned the camera off and turned it back on, it didn't go back to that. It kept his old settings. I think you have to go back to C1 each time.
That's what I'm saying. You have to turn back to C1.
Oh, it was already in C1.
It should reset to those settings.
It didn't reset to those settings because Katie had the same thing. We'll have to take a look. Maybe I had it set wrong. I don't know.
You might have had it set to the setting where it updates live. It can update C1 as you're adjusting settings. Maybe you
don't think so. I don't know. But regardless, I made the subtle corrections. But the good news was right off the bat, both Troy and Katie had the right set. Like they had pictures, they had good stuff. The funny thing that always happens is when you're sitting in the vehicle the first time, you start driving around and you see like an antelope and they start taking pictures. I'm like, guys, this is nothing. Stop taking pictures of the fucking antelope. We're going to see 8 billion antelope. We're looking for for lions. We're looking for big cats. But anyway, they got that by like the third day. It's like, yeah, we don't need to stop and shoot these pictures of any of this stuff. So Troy got a bunch of great stuff early. Katie got a bunch of stuff early, and I did some critiques in the tents, right? Because I had to offload all their data. They didn't bring computers, and they wouldn't know what to do anyway. So I had to do all the backup and storage. It's close to 2 terabytes of data, by the way, almost.
They're shooting RAW, I assume.
I have them shooting RAW because I'm going to edit all their files, and I had to do all of the backing up into different folders. So I had Troy folder, Katie folder, individual day folder, for each one of them, my own folders broken up into each day, video folders for all the stuff that I needed to get for you and Dan, which I did pretty good with getting you guys footage.
Did you end up vlogging or what did you do?
A mix of putting the Ace Pro 2 in the hot shoe, Ace Pro 2 on a stick, holding it under the car and getting splashed with mud from the tires in slow-mo, putting it on the front of the vehicle and 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 3 seconds, Steven, before it stopped at 4K 48.
Okay.
1 hour, 22 minutes, and 3 seconds it ran for. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Battery life.
Yeah. And no
That's
overheating.
better. Last year was
I'm
like 1 hour
surprised
and
it
7
didn't
minutes.
overheat first.
Well, got to keep in mind, Steven, it's like 78 degrees out and you're driving a vehicle anywhere from 10 to 30, 40 miles an hour.
The wind.
So it's constantly got air blowing in front of it. And so I've got that footage. I used the X4, and that's going to be good because you have the X4 showing me shooting all the cameras, and then you could flip it around and see what I was shooting. I have EVF footage. So there's a lot. I did vloggy stuff.
Did you use like the clarity zoom and everything on the Ace Pro 2? Did you shoot in 8K at all? I know that's the big thing for this one.
I did everything. I did all of that. I put it in 8K, which you can't do clarity zoom when you do 8K.
No, it's only 4K.
It uses that.
Yeah.
But I gave a little bit of everything to try and do. Vanessa took my camera a couple times without me knowing to film some stuff. There's going to be random stuff that we find.
What kind of stuff?
Oh, well, tent stuff. Stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
No, I went and took a leak behind the vehicle, and she started to commentate me taking a leak behind the vehicle.
Look at how small it is. What?
Yeah. She was watching it on the rear view camera. That's what I said. I was like, I wish you guys had a rear view camera right now.
I mean, you could have put the Ace Pro there and then used your phone as the monitor.
No, so there's just a lot. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, we had, so I didn't realize that the other vehicles named the cars that everybody was in. Just so like, where's this so the baseballers, they called the other car the Ballers. There was the Ballers, and then there was Matt's car. I don't know what they called themselves. Troy was in that one. Robert was in that one.
It was probably some
and
Jurassic Park
Brandon.
themed Jeep name.
I don't know. And then we were the YouTubers, obviously, because it was me, Vanessa, and Manny, and then Katie was in the car as well.
By the way, for those wondering who Troy is, if you watch our Juin 200 light product showcase that we did a few months back, it was the Jurassic Park photo shoot. I think you actually shot that with the Fuji, right?
I did Fuji and the R3.
It's Canon R3 and Fuji GFX 100S Jurassic Park photo challenge. Yeah, that video completely flopped. If you look up that video,
It's one of the best videos.
it is. I love that video. Troy is the one. That's his Jeep. He's obsessed with Jurassic Park. He's obsessed with like movie themed. What does he call it? It has to be realistic movie. I forget what he calls it.
I don't know.
It's not like a shitty prop that you can just buy. He actually makes realistic looking movie props like this Jurassic Park Jeep. Authentic.
Great. Well, that's Troy that I'm talking about.
Yeah. He's the model in that video.
Yep. So we're all in the different cars. One of the biggest takeaways I got from Katie shooting and looking at her work, I kind of got upset sometimes looking at the photos. I'm like, God damn it, these are good. And
it's called
I'm
jealousy.
very competitive. Like, yeah, I mean, what she did with a 100 to 500, which was the perfect choice for a Safari for I'd say a non-pro. Like, I think a 100 to 500 you could do so much damage with the right settings.
What about a 200 to 800?
I think 200 to 800 would have been just overkill.
Okay.
F9 at the end. I think it's unbalanced. I think it's an overkill lens and it's too big.
What about the Sony 200 to 600?
I think the 200 to 600 is a fantastic choice for a Safari, or a 100 to 400 Sony is probably good. My longest was 400, but Katie was able to bang in at 500 on certain things where I couldn't, right? But what I took away from the way that one of the things you need to do in a vehicle is you need to square yourself off to shooting. Last year, I sat in the back row so that I could go left to right. And you'll see this in the videos, and you may have seen it in the recap from last year, the vlog. I started off the trip sitting in the middle row, where Katie was on the right, I was on the left, Manny was on the right in the front row, and Vanessa on the left. But I didn't like how high I had to sit up and turn. I'm all about being able to square your body and lean in and use the armrests or your leg or something as a balancing point. And that's why I jumped back into the back of the vehicle. I find that you can't get your line straight, or you're more awkward if you can't square off to the subject you're photographing. And so Katie did a great job of being able to square off and compose. Her composition was, yes, I mean, there's times where I'm like, no. I mean, people hearing my critique at the time were like, you're like, this sucks, this is awesome. But yeah, I'm like, nope, yes, more of this, so much yes. And then a term I came up with was like, I'll give you that. Like, I don't know, I just kept saying like, I'll give you this one, which means it was
enough. Yeah.
It means it was good enough, and like it might be one that you like, but you'll see by the end it's not the best of the best. It was tough love, but not like you suck. It was encouraging, because I'm like, yeah, you just took all of these like 5 in a row that weren't great, but then you fixed the composition. That's what we're looking for.
And I know people give you shit, myself included, about the whole not cropping thing. But since you are teaching them from day one that mentality of cropping camera as you're photographing, do you feel like their compositions were pretty spot on that didn't need cropping after the
100%. Katie's 100% don't need cropping. Troy's early stuff, I cropped certain things to make better. And I think as he went on later, his stuff got better and better. Whereas most other people in the cars, their mentality is I could just crop it, and I'm not a fan of that. That's me personally. But
I mean, I've always said, like, if I got the shot and happened to be a little loose, okay, I'll crop it. But yeah, I try my best to obviously compose it properly in camera. But I'm not opposed to not cropping at all after.
For Katie and Troy, I cared the most that their lines, and when I say lines, the other guys were like, we say horizons. I cared more that their horizons were spot on, because there's other people that literally are fixing anywhere from 4 to like 14% when they're off.
Did they shoot with the level on, or?
No, they just got it right.
Okay, good.
They got it right. Their compositions were right. When I sat there and critiqued Katie's and then Troy's in the tent, I was like, I should be recording this for the video. Like, this is incredible.
I think you should do it after the fact. Now that you guys are home, because have they seen all of the photos yet?
They haven't seen them all, but they have seen a lot of their keepers, because I made sure to go through so they could see them.
It'd be interesting, though, to do a live Zoom one-on-one type mentorship call with them and critique their photos for a later video.
No, you know where it's going? I already decided.
Video guide.
It's going in the video guide.
Yeah.
It's going in the video guide, because there is nothing better for teaching than I taught them the method that I'm going to teach in the video guide for beginners. They did. And I'm going to go through their photos. I'm going to strip out all of the edits and I'm going to basically make a copy of all the files, and I'm going to start over and do the live critique, many months down the road. So it's going to be fresh in my head. I'm going to do it exactly how I did. And it's going to be a section of the video taking a beginner on Safari and seeing how they did it using my method, and then going through all the files, whether they shot 1700 or 800 or 2000, we're going through it. And there's so much learning. Robert sat there and was like, that was fucking incredible. Like, and then I critique Robert's stuff too, the same way when he was on the trip, our reader. And he was like, that was awesome. Cause everybody was listening. They were all editing their own shit. But I was really happy and proud of what they were accomplishing. Everybody, Robert, Vanessa, Troy, just seeing Troy and Katie have no experience shooting anything. Katie had shot 5 times. Like, we went on 2 shoots, Katie and I, before. I took her to the zoo for one, and she went to Alaska with the camera, where I gave her assignments. And when she came back from Alaska, I was blown away by some of the photos. Yes, there's a lot of shit, but based off of my method. And also, I think there's natural ability in there too, because I can teach anybody a method. I can't teach everybody the eye of composition and capturing the moment. And do you know why? Do you know why she's so good?
Because you taught her?
Because I taught her. No, I think that contributes.
I will say too, it does not hurt to have a lens like that. It's not like you gave her a 24 to 105 on Safari and was like, hey, try and figure it out. Have fun. Obviously, she had pretty much the best of the best gear, which certainly helped.
I set them up for success.
Yes.
But she would have been able to do the same thing with an R6 Mark II with a 100 to 500.
Did you limit their frame rate?
I limited them to 10 frames.
Mechanical or electronic?
Electronic.
Why? You should just did 12 frames mechanical.
Look, I don't want to make noise. Don't want to make noise with the animals.
Dude, the mechanical shutter on the R3 is
Doesn't
pretty
matter.
much silent.
No, there's no need for mechanical in the R3.
Not one person was shooting with a mechanical shutter on that trip?
Dusty had his D6 out there for a while until he switched to his Z9. So yeah, I could hear that from across the way.
But that's also a mechanical shutter for a DSLR. But I think because you're hearing the prism flap too.
The mirror.
The mirror, yeah.
I set them up for success I thought 10 was going to be the right amount. Troy did discover in his car how to turn it to 30 for something, and he did.
Nice.
And then he turned it back off. You didn't ask how many frames I took. It's over 30 some thousand. And that's not counting the Sony frames. So probably close to 4,000 photos, 40,000 this time.
So were you shooting 40 frames per second with pre-shooting on?
So there's a lot of learning that happened with the R1. Mm-hmm. This is a new world of shooting. You don't shoot everything at 40 frames a second with pre-capture, like elephants. Do I need to shoot elephants at 40 frames a second? They're not moving that fast. But so I ended up changing my MFM button, which is by the shutter button, so that when I hit this,
the motherfucking button.
The motherfucking button. I can switch between H+, H, and low, HL, or whatever the low one is. And I set it to 15 or 10, 20, or 10, 30, or 15, 30, and 40. So I could switch around the way, how many frames I was shooting. The problem is if I set it to 10 frames or 15 frames a second and I have pre-capture on, if I'm at 15, you're still getting 7.5 frames a second of pre-capture. So if I just want to get a single picture quickly or a quick burst, no matter what I did, you're getting all, if you had your finger pressed halfway down, you're getting all of those extra frames. So at 40 frames a second, you're getting 20 frames extra if you fill the entire pre-buffer of pre-capture. So if I only take 5 pictures, I got 25 pictures every time.
Yeah, that is the issue with pre-shooting.
Well, part of before you ask that, the issue is the Canon doesn't give you the ability to deactivate pre-capture with one simple press of a button. So there's scenes where I'm like, I just want to get this picture. I would have to go into the menu. I would then have to hit the click. I would have to click, or I'd have to hit the Q button, pre-capture, dial over to there, hit OK, disable, and then be out to shoot. That's too long. The Sony gets it right with one press.
I agree. I thought we set you up so you can just go into my menu real quick, disable it, done. 2 presses.
That's what the R5 Mark II we had set to that.
We never set the R1.
But it's still too slow for what I want to do.
It's just
I want to hit
faster than the Q button method.
It is, but but sometimes I don't want it to launch right to there. It's just not everything needs to be shot at 40 frames a second. But on the flip side, what happens for that one time where that 40 frames and pre-capture gets you the shot? So you end up with terabytes, so much extra data these days that I have to come up with new methods to control the data when I'm shooting.
At least now with the R1, you can dial in those weird incremental frame rates. Instead of being at 40 frames per second, you could do 3, 7, 10, 12, whatever it may be. Where the
7.5.
7.5, yeah, that's the weird number. The thing with the R3, though, you can only set it to what, 3, 15, 30, and that's it, and you're set, right?
I don't recall.
Low, medium, high, plus. Speaking of frame rate, do you feel like the A1 II would have been a better choice because you could have used that speed boost button and you could have been at, say, 20 and then 30 for speed boost? Or no?
No, I just shot that at H+. I shot that one at 30 frames a second with pre-capture at a half a second. Or I didn't realize this, that the top dial was on H for some of the shooting because the top dial is how you change it there. I know you can change it in the system too.
Yeah.
But no, somehow the dial got switched, so I don't know how that happened.
Must have got bumped.
Well, there was a lot of jostling.
I mean, the good thing is when you're shooting an H at 20 frames per second, you're at that 14-bit uncompressed RAW with the A12 as opposed to the compressed RAW at the full 30 frames per second. Granted, your R1 though is 14-bit uncompressed across the board.
Yeah, it is,
40
contrary
frames.
to popular belief. But yes, it is. For anybody that's wondering, the R1 is full at 40 frames a second. You get 14-bit RAW, full RAW files at 40 frames, even with pre-capture on. It doesn't dumb it down.
I think they are lossless compressed, but Canon will never officially say that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure based on the
They're
file
still
size,
lossless,
they're
right?
lossless
So
compressed, yeah.
I really enjoyed using the R1. I think it's a very well thought out camera now. Really, really good. Like autofocus is unbelievable. The speed of shooting, the acquirability, the build quality. The EVF is so much better than the EVF on the Sony. It is just, and it feels like a real fucking camera.
Do you now speaking of that, do you prefer the ergonomics of the R1 over the R3
Yes.
after using it on Safari?
I do. And I realized that before the trip too, that when I would go back to an R3, it felt scrunched. It felt like the buttons were all more scrunched together, whereas the R1, it's more separate because it's a bigger body. It just feels better now, much better. I was wrong about that.
The only issue I have is if you are a fan of those function buttons on the front, it's a lot easier to select them on the R3 versus like the R1 where you kind of got to extend your fingers to hit those buttons.
Yeah. Well, the A12 is nothing to slouch. It's not a slouch. Mm-hmm. The A12 is fantastic.
Sure.
Now we can't open the RAW files yet, but there's times where you bang in zoom where it zooms in on the 50 megapixel file right to the subject and you're like, holy fuck, that's sharp. The details and the quality, even just coming off the JPEGs, are tremendous. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous file. And
you didn't bring the A9 III? I know you initially planned on taking it, right?
You're right. That's something I left out as well.
Okay.
I left that out. It just would have gotten too complicated.
The only reason I know that is because when I went back to the factory to photograph,
it was sitting there
to film fix. Yeah, I was like, oh, I guess he didn't take the A9 III.
No, that's one of the compromises I made on weight. I didn't need it. I took it out. Yeah, I made the decision. But no, the A12 is really good. It really makes you question the need for the A9 III. I hope in the comparison video that I did, I hope I said if you need the speed, the A9 III is where to go. If you don't need the speed, the 50 megapixels is tremendous.
It's basically that, yeah.
Yeah, good, because for wildlife photographers, I mean, I don't know that you need 120 frames a second.
See, I still think sports though is where that thing shines.
What, the A9?
A9 III.
Well, yeah, it does, and where flickering scoreboards might be an issue.
Exactly.
But the A12, I mean, even if the A9 III didn't exist, the A12 is an unbelievable camera for sports and portraits and wildlife and nature and anything you can throw at it. It is unbelievable because of the 50 megapixels. Now, build quality wise, I hate the feel of the body feels fine. The complaints from the pros, we want a real body. We want a bigger body with a bigger battery. Their big complaint is I go through 80 batteries a game.
I really thought, just like our Photo News Fix April Fool's video, I thought that they were going to finally switch it up this time around with their quote-unquote flagship with the A12 and have a full vertical integrated grip body. But they didn't obviously do that.
Well, what they even said, some of these shooters that shoot Sony, they're like, even if there was a grip that took a bigger battery,
sure,
fine.
Yeah.
Do it.
That's the compromise.
We want a bigger battery. Like, give us a tray that takes a bigger battery. We don't care. We want more battery because we go through so many during a game because the Z battery is just smaller and not as powerful as using the R1's battery.
Now, since we're on cameras, did you use the R5 Mark II at all?
Oh, yeah, tremendous. So the way that I sat, and there's so much, guys, we're not going to get into everything, and I know we're going to go into overtime today, but the way that my setup was in the back of the vehicle was the R1 was on the 400-2.8 RF Canon lens. The R5 II was on the 100-300. And that was going from one to the other, yeah, the buttons are a little different in some things, and there's times where I'm like, where did I map out the AF servo to one shot, I would hit it by accident, like just going back like that. But being able to grab one and then the other, like I'd start at a distance, 400 like this, okay, switch out 100 to 300, give myself the different point of view, 30 frames a second, pre-capture, raw, autofocus was the same. Just what fantastic, I mean, R5 Mark II, what a fantastic freaking camera. Holy shit.
The real flagship.
Now, the A1 is still, the A1 II is probably still superior
But
to that.
that's comparable to the R5 too, more than the R1.
It is, but the only difference is the readout speed is much faster on the A1 II. Much faster readout speed.
I mean, you're looking at 4 milliseconds versus 6. Is there really going to be a noticeable difference?
No. For most people, the answer is no. I mean, actually.
And again, keep in mind, you're getting that 14-bit raw, lossless, compressed files at 30 frames per second, opposed to the compressed, lossy files at 30 frames per second on the A1 II.
Now, I don't have these files loaded on my computer yet. Because it's too much data, so I use the pro grade external, which, by the way, the 8 terabyte one, which is powered by the computer, sucks up my battery so much because it's so powerful that I only use it when I'm plugged in.
Oh, wow.
Because it was chewing, because there's so much data being thrown. It's meant for speed, so it needs a lot of power. But I can see my previews here of everything but the Sony. I have the breakdown of 42,850 raw files.
Oh man, that's not including Troy and Katie.
No, I didn't include theirs.
Oh my God.
They still took almost 20,000 themselves.
Last year though, right? You took 26,000, 23,000?
It was over 20,000. It was right over 20,000.
Doubled it on Safari this year.
And it was a shorter trip. But yeah, I mean, faster shooting cameras. So I took the 10 to 20. There's 5 lenses that I shot with that there's pictures. 28 to 70, 85, 1.2, 100 to 300. How is that possible? How is there an RF 100 to 300 with an extender on it? Did Vanessa use my camera?
Did you import one of Vanessa's pictures by accident?
I did. Okay. I'm going to share my screen so you could see these photos real fast, Stephen, and live react. Because she didn't bring a 400. She brought a 100 to 300 with an extender, and that's what she used the whole time. She's like, while you're busy futzing around switching lenses from 400 to 100 to 300, I'm like, Vanessa, that doesn't make any sense. I'm quickly, hey, my dad's calling, Steven. I know, Steven's favorite part.
Love it.
Dad, we're on the show recording.
You're on the show recording. Well, welcome home. Okay. Very good. So, what's the topic for today?
We're talking about the Safari.
Crazy.
Shocking. Okay. Enjoy the session, and I will talk to you a little bit later.
All right.
Sorry for the interruption.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Riveting conversation.
Yeah, you know, I had to move through pretty quick. So Vanessa, back to that, using the one fork of her, I totally disagree with needing it. Will anybody notice the difference? The answer is no, because I'm sure it's fine, but you know my take on it. But there were times where she switched off the teleconverter. That takes longer to switch the teleconverter than me grabbing a second body. But she went with it shorter. But let me share my screen real quick. You ready for this, Steven?
I'm ready.
You got it?
It's, for those listening, shirtless pictures of Jared holding 2 cameras. Why do you have no shirt on?
In the Safari.
I mean, I'm not surprised, but
look at these, Steven. I needed dating profile photos. Oh, they're not going to load because they're not in the computer, but
I love how you think these are flattering photos.
Dude, well, go fuck yourself. Basically what happened was you lose weight on these trips. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like I was really fucking ripped and cut right there. So I wanted some photos of me with my shirt off to see how ripped and cut I was. And so I had Vanessa do it. That's why it's showing 100 to 3. So take off 31 pictures because she didn't shoot heavy like I did. She stayed in single shot for basically everything.
Single shot. Wow.
Basically. Different type of shooter. Yeah.
Interesting.
So the breakdown, and then I use a 400-2.8. The 10 to 20 f4 didn't come out of my bag once. So the breakdown is...
I'm curious, by the way, since she was in single shot, how many photos she took.
Yeah, I'll have to ask her. I don't know.
Significantly less than yours.
She may have sped it up at times. or she went to slower modes. I mean, she obviously got good stuff, but 28 to 70, 368 photos. I barely used that. I used it for some elephants, it looks like, and a leopard at the very end. 8512, 3,139 photos. How many of those are actually keepers? Let's see. Because I did edit some of those, like keepers, 74 pictures. Okay. I'll tell you the entire keepers as of now without going further. 100 to 300, I took 13,827, and the 400 to 8, 25,485 photos.
So you made a big point in the Africa gear video that you didn't want to bring a 600 and people were wrong. Do you still feel like you didn't need any extra reach on this time around?
Yeah, 100%.
400 was perfect. Okay.
Yeah, 600 just becomes too. There's maybe like one or two situations where I would have used it when the lion was drinking water or something. But here, out of however many the total amount of photos, it ended up keeper wise selection. Oh, hold on. Is 800 right now? 849 are my starred photos. 849 out of 40,000 out of whatever the number was that I said.
Wow. How many did you have last year in terms of selects?
I don't know. Can't go back and look right this. I mean, I guess I could technically, but
Katie now, since she had a 100 to 500, did she find herself shooting more at the long end at 500 or more in that 400 range? Because I'm curious again, saying that 600 is too much, is 500 more that sweet spot or is still 400 the perfect?
So I can switch to focal length for her, and I can break this down. 300. So right now I have 15,000, 1,100 photos for her. And that's not including the last day where we randomly found the leopard on the way to we got sighting of a leopard when we were going to go to the airport. So we left a little earlier and found the leopard, got some good stuff. So 100 millimeters, she took 373. Let's go to 500. She took, 5,356 out at 500. So she shot a lot at 500. A lot, but 472, 451, 428, 400. Yeah, she took a lot all the way out at 500. It probably came in handy for her. That's the breakdown for her, and I don't have all of Troy's loaded onto here yet.
Okay.
But that's a pretty interesting when you look at the breakdown of which lenses were used. The 400 was my most used lens again. So what else is there? I mean, there's a lot. Food, I lost like 7 pounds this year. I requested grilled chicken or fish at every stop. The first day we got to the camp, they had pork.
Yes.
Well, what was crazy is the guy's
always happens to you. I don't get it. Do you have any dietary restrictions? Yes, here they are. And then you show up and it's a free-for-all.
I'm not sure how this one got lost in translation, but the guy was like, we have only pork tonight. I'm like, no other options? And then, of course, like 3 minutes later, they're like, oh, but we also have fish. I was like, well, that's another option. But anyway, it got situated, and I hate to really complain when we're there because there's like the
first world problem. Yeah,
it's major first world problems. Like Manny didn't like the bugs at the first camp. I'm like, Manny, you're in Kenya. You're in Africa.
Yeah.
There's a scorpion right there. Like what do you want,
dude? I would have got eaten alive there.
Yeah, I didn't use any bug spray at all this time. I was fine. But I did take 2 cameras. I was able to shed extra weight on the way home because I took 2 fun to photographer cameras. I took 2 5D Mark IVs with 100 to 400s and put the cards in there, got the card reader, I didn't get the card reader, but got the battery and the charger because I knew that one of our drivers last year talked about loving photography and there's no way he could have a camera. So you'll see this in a video. Manny filmed it and Vanessa filmed it for me. We stop and I surprise him with a camera. Which is awesome. So wow. George got himself a new, got that camera. He started shooting right away. I set it.
Does he have like a computer to edit stuff on? Or
so I asked that question. He said, no, internet, no. I'll get to that in a second.
What is he doing with the camera?
So Vanessa works with Lexar. They had a card reader that plugs into an Android device. We tested it on Troy's and we could transfer files. And when we tested it on George's camera, George's phone, it didn't work. So his phone must not have that capability. He says he has an HP. He says he has a laptop somewhere. But he could also download them at the camps because I know they have a computer at the camp. That's one thing. Dude, the pain level of understanding the lack of I started to ask George some questions
Yeah.
in the vehicle while we were driving. I mean, and I asked him about his family, and I asked him about like he has one wife. You have to specify how many wives because you can have more than one.
Oh, wow.
He loves his wife. That's why he has one. So he loves her. They have 4 kids. His parents live with him and they have a house. I asked him about it. Like, does he live in a village? And basically they have a house and the village is them, just them. I don't know what the house looks like. I've seen what houses look like in the villages for some people, and they are shanties for some people. I asked about water. They don't have running water at the house. So they have to go down to the river, which is how some people die in Africa, is they go to the river to either wash clothes, to get drinking water, and hippos bite them in half.
Oh, man. Don't they say hippos are one of the most dangerous animals in Africa?
Yes, Manny has a funny hippo story. So there was a family tent. It was me. I roomed with Manny the whole time. Katie and Vanessa roomed together, and we had a family tent. So the family tents are big. Last year we showed you that. There's a meeting area in the middle. Then there's 2 separate sides. In the middle of the night, I go walking in the sleep to a mountain too high, to a river too deep, in the middle of the night. I slept through this. I didn't know what happened. I heard a bunch of noise and I just stayed asleep. Turns out they got up. They're looking outside of our tent and a giraffe was eating stuff off the roof. And then
Little midnight snack.
Hippos were right outside. Because in the conservancies, you're in with the animals. You're not. And in one of the places, you have to lock your zipper because the baboons or the monkeys can unzip the tents and get into your tent and ransack it looking for food. Or fucking you in the ass. Like that could happen in the middle of the night. We did get some baboon dong. We saw baboons having sex, but it's a totally different story. Yeah, so we're sitting in the media, what they called the media tent, which was where there was charging and internet, not very good internet, and there's whistles in each tent because at night you blow the whistle and then the person comes with a flashlight to shine so no animals are around because you're not supposed to leave the tent on your own because it's dark.
Sure.
But this is during the day. We hear someone blow the whistle, and it was not like a big urgent whistle. So I'm like, oh, someone's blowing the whistle. 10 seconds later, they blow it again. I'm like, well, 2 whistles, well, whatever. Then they blow the whistle a 3rd time. I'm like, you think maybe we should go look?
Probably not good.
Manny goes out of the, this is during the day, he goes out of the tent and he starts running. He goes, holy shit, there's a hippo. And he's made eye contact with me. And he starts to try to take a picture. I'm like, Manny, fucking go get help. Don't try to take a picture. So the hippo made eye contact and then went down to the water. We're talking. I'm like, how big was it? And Troy called them angry potatoes or something, or danger potatoes, because they're like potatoes with legs.
Do they charge so fast?
40 miles an hour.
What? Really?
Yeah, they're fast fuckers.
Wow.
So anyway, they made eye contact and then it got scared away and ran down to the water. But Brandon was coming out of his tent, and in the pathway, which is where my tent was too, was a hippo. He ran into the other tent that was there and started to blow the whistle. So I said, Brandon, the next time it's an emergency whistle, fucking blow the whistle with emergency. Don't toot it. It's like you don't want to bother anybody. So then the hippo ran away. But yeah,
you should be blowing that
scary.
That fucking whistle like Kate Winslet on the board in the Titanic movie.
Repeatedly, you should blow the fucking whistle.
Oh man,
that Manny was Manny didn't like bugs, so he was afraid of. But anyway, back to George, who I gave the camera to. There's no water in his house, no running water, which means no bathrooms too.
Jeez.
I said, well, how do you charge your phone? He goes, oh, I go into the town and charge my phone there. So I don't know they have to pay extra to do that. He's like, but my wife and I just got a small battery bank charger, like for a phone.
Yeah.
So they don't have to go to them often. So before we left, I gave him my battery bank, my big one. I'm just like, and I gave him the cable. I'm like, here. And dude,
that one's probably good for like 10, 15 charges, right?
It's good for a bunch of charges.
10,000 milliamps or something.
Yeah, it's good for a bunch. I will read you what he texted me because he has WhatsApp and we're going to stay in touch. But he dude, what he wrote, he goes, whatever, his English isn't as good, but Jared, miss you, my friend. I went home today. My wife, she is very happy in the power bank that we can charge our phone in our bed. Be blessed, my brother. The most basic of simple things for us are extravagant luxuries for them.
Of course.
And it's real.
Like it's stuff we take for granted. Yeah.
Well, so I asked him, I'm like, how is being a game driver like making money? He's like, in the busy seasons, it's really good. And other than that, it's not. That's how they make money, off of tips and everything. So I tip pretty well, especially when I'm making money. I make sure I, tip them, the drivers, well. And on top of everything. And, he talked about he's got like 10 cows, they raise cows, and that's how you trade. Like, you trade cows and you make money. And I said, how much is a cow? He said 70,000 something their money, which is like $700 for a big cow. So you could get a cow for like 150. I'm thinking, like, I'm sitting in the back of the seats going, should I buy this guy a fucking cow? I'm like, should I just buy him a cow? Like, how does this do? I'm like, hey, here's $500, go buy a cow. Right? Like, will that change his life?
Yeah.
Well, so now my brain is going, well, what the fuck can I do? I'm like, because you know me, when my brain gets into these modes, I'm like, I'm starting to contemplate what I can do to help George and the other people. I had 2 funded photographer cameras. I asked George, because I didn't want to take it to the next camp, because I didn't know if there would be someone there who wanted to shoot. Honestly, all of these guides will be good photographers if they had cameras. I might talk to Canon about see if they could connect with Canon Kenya to supply these people, but or if I could send more and maybe they don't get stolen. But George mentioned that there was another guy in the camp, or another tour guide who's always wanted a camera. So I'm like, all right, well, before we get to the next camp, let's stop and surprise him. And we did. And I mean, this guy was so happy about it too. So my brain is like, well, how can I help George? And I know people always want to be like, you got to help everybody. But sometimes you just have to start with one, right? If you try to do everything, it doesn't help as much. But I know that George, from what I was told, if I was to give him money, he would probably help his fellow people as well, because they're a tribe. But what I was thinking is, we did a charity shirt for Australia back in the day, and we raised $16,000 when we did that for the wildlife, the wildfires in Australia at the time. And I'm like, well, why don't I do like an African edition one and take all of the profits from that and get it to George? It's just like, but am I doing more damage? Like, then my brain goes, am I doing damage if you give the guy $10,000? Like, is that damage? Is that bad? Right? Like, what do I do? And so I have to figure it out and talk to some of the people that have nonprofits and talk to George. I'm going to talk to George directly, because instead of trying to figure out what George wants, I would ask him flat out, like, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? And you can do whatever you want. You can disperse it to all of the guides. You can help whoever you want to help. But is this a benefit? Would this help a lot? So I was thinking of that, or selling prints.
I was going to say the print option. Yeah.
I might do it with selling prints as well and taking all the profits from that, even though I like making money. My brain goes, I want that. I want to make money. But Jesus Christ, man, no running water, no electricity. They scrape. And then I'm sitting here complaining about food. Talk about complaining for everybody ending by the time you get to the end of the trip. When you see how people live, you're just like, so my chicken isn't perfect.
So thankful and grateful for what you actually do have compared to how they live their lives.
Yeah. That's something that I want to get into, figuring out how to help George out. And if I go back again, he invited me to the house. He's like, I'm going to take you to the house and meet the family, because he just was very appreciative of the camera. And he started shooting right away, and I could see he was getting good photos. I looked at the camera. I don't know how he's going to get them off the camera. There's only so much I can do. But, we gave him a card reader. It's SD, and he said he had an HP laptop, and usually you can plug into those.
Yeah.
So, and I set it to JPEG. I didn't set his to RAW.
I was going to jokingly ask, I hope he's shooting RAW, but yeah, I hope you actually set it to a small JPEG or something.
I set the camera to auto ISO, all in the wide area AF, which is close to mirrorless camera stuff. I set it to aperture priority, so it would set the aperture and and automatically set the shutter speed for him.
You should just do the FV mode. I mean, that's like the hybrid P mode. You know?
Is it? I haven't used that
Where you
camera.
can really
That camera's very
tweak
good. By
every
the way.
single auto setting.
Yeah, but I tried to set it up for success, and so
Yeah.
that's it.
It's
That's
tough,
where I'm
man.
going to end it. I'm going to end it there probably for the episode and do a wrap here. But yeah, that was hard. When I asked where do you charge your phone, and he's like, I have to go into town. We don't have electric. I'm like, well, okay. How much is it to drill a well? How much is it to get a solar panel battery storage unit? Like, is that like a grand or two? You could probably get a good one, and he can charge it out there at the house in the sun because they get a lot of sun, and maybe that would be helpful. Like, I'm trying to think of all these things. Like, what can we do? And that's where my brain went.
That's tough, man. That's really tough.
Real quick, I know I didn't talk a lot about the photos. I still have to go through all of them. I posted a couple. I got some great tight shots. I got wides, medium, tights, and details, of course. There's some.
that's weird.
There's obviously going to be better ones than others. I haven't fully been able to go through them all yet, which is what I'm going to do when I sit here at the big screen. It's much easier to do. I'm happy with the results. I mean, what the frustrating thing with 3 cars is that someone else is going to get something that you didn't get, and you're going to be upset about it.
Now you're going to question everything that you shot, comparing it to
100%. Or if your car didn't get a good angle, like there were cheetahs stalking. And we thought they was going to go after this gazelle, and the gazelle ran away, but then the cheetahs ran towards another area where, well, it turns out that a jackal had caught a baby gazelle and was already eating it, and the cheetahs scared away the jackal. And by the time our car got there, I think our driver for this one, he was a little more snappy than some of the others. The other cars got there quicker, and Troy has photos, and the other cars have photos where literally the cheetahs are yanking the gazelle dead away, and it's missing half of its body, and they have the head in their mouth, and you see like literally the front 2 legs, and then the entire torso is just torn open with blood dripping out.
I did actually see that photo. I don't know if it was the back
Troy
of a
posted
screen.
it.
Yeah, Troy.
Yeah, Troy posted the back of the screen. So
it's insane that they can literally rip an animal in half, clean cut, right down the middle almost.
well, what we think happened there is that the jackals, which are small, like dog-like, fox-looking cats, probably started in the stomach and started eating through there. And then when the cheetahs came, there were 5 cheetahs,
Played tug
all
of
in a
war.
family. One half took this half, the other took that half, and they went to town. And those are the same cheetahs that I shot as cubs last year.
Wow.
I think they were the same ones where the big storm was coming in.
Did you name them?
No, I didn't name them. But there was one where there was just one cheetah and the mother. We got some good shots there. The 4 others, cubs died after they were killed after we left last year. And then at the very end, we got a leopard in a tree, and then the female leopard, called out for the son to come up, and the sun came up in the tree, and that's where Vanessa has this really good photo of the 2 leopards with their heads really close together. I don't think I have I was in the car with Vanessa for that shot, so I either didn't see it happening or missed that. But I got another one where the male leopard is stretched out, looking up. I sent you the screen grab, right?
Yes.
The male leopard is stretched out and looking up at the mother with, I think, loving eyes, and the mother staring directly at me. I like that shot. I would like the Vanessa shot. And then Manny and Katie and Matt were in a different car and got the male leopard on the ground with a beautiful, like, dark background and the sun hitting them, and you got a tight one. So it's a crapshoot. Sometimes you're in the right place and you get rewarded. Like one morning, there were 3 different lion prides that we were out searching for. We went one way at 6 a.m, and the other 2 went others, and we came up on 5 lions or 6 lions. There was a female, the mother, and then like 5 cubs that aren't cubs, that they're a little bigger now. We ran into them about 6:30 as the sun was directly shining in their eyes.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah.
We got there before everybody else. So we would go down, drive down in a line, and they'd walk towards. Dude, that picture I posted.
That was sunrise?
Sunrise.
Okay.
You can see it. In the eye of the lion, in the eye of the lion, you can see the sun in the distance. You could see the horizon, and you can see the clouds in the blue sky. It's insane. In the reflection, that was R5 Mark II. That one that I put on Instagram, And people want to know how close we were. I was 1 foot away from that lion when it got to the car. It walked right behind the vehicle. It stared at me and Katie, and it looked right at us. Didn't make any other moves, like bad moves. It looked right at us, walked right up to the vehicle, went right past the back. I wish the 360 camera was on that side of the car. It was on the other side because I can't switch it every time I'm trying to shoot. But I have 360 footage with the lion just standing there looking, and I'm like, that's the lion right there, 2 feet away from the vehicle.
Do they not see humans as food?
They don't see us as food. They see us. That's why we don't dangle shit outside of the vehicle around them, because they react to anything out of the car. But they do look and see you. And I don't think it's out of the question that one of them could jump in the vehicle.
Oh, 1,000%.
If they went rabid and they were just,
I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. I mean, it almost seems like they're somewhat domesticated at seeing, used to seeing humans at this point.
They're used to seeing humans because they're all born, and they're all used to seeing these big Land Cruisers, so they know them by now.
They see the Land Cruiser as a giant animal that's just always been there, I guess. Yeah.
They see it as not a threat.
Wow.
Because it's not a threatening thing, because the vehicles don't chase them or run into them or do dumb shit, usually. So
yeah, usually.
Let's end this, Steven. There's so much to talk about. There's so much work for me to catch up on.
Well, real
especially
quick,
lunch.
Since we're kind of wrapping up that trip, you also had an issue coming home, right?
I did?
In terms of losing something?
Oh, yeah, my bag didn't show up. Yeah. My checked luggage, because normally I wouldn't check luggage, but this is when you have 2 bags to carry on the plane of 60-some pounds, I have to take my clothes. We get back to Philly, and since I'm priority, I know that my bag tag says priority on it. It's going to come out sooner. So the bags start coming out. Katie gets her bag, which is priority.
Yours should be right behind it.
I check my Find A, and it said updated 3 minutes ago. My bag sitting in London Terminal 5B. So my bag wasn't made. I'm like, if AirTag says that it's 5 minutes ago and it's there, it's not here.
And this is why we always say never check gear.
Well,
hopefully you'll get this bag back, because you do have an AirTag on it. It's probably just not sorted correctly, whatever.
Yeah, well, I wasn't the only one on the flight. So I went down to the check-in, where you go to file a claim. Mm-hmm. I go there. You file the claim. I told them, I see it. It's in London. It's on my air. Apple did announce integrations with other airline carriers now where you can share your location of your bag with them. American hasn't instituted that, but United did so far, where you could share your tag with them so they can locate your bag quicker.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, I got the text message this morning that my bag was located, verified the address it needs to go to, and I don't know when they'll bring it.
They just ship it directly to you, or you have to pick it up at the airport?
They have to. They fly it here. No, they will drive it to you.
Oh, wow.
Let me see. Find A. We'll see where it is. Right now, at 5:04 a.m., it was in Terminal 3. And if it doesn't show up as getting read, see, the thing with AirTags is it has to be able to ping another phone.
So if they're actively in the air, it probably, it's obviously not pinging.
Yeah, it's being that it's in Terminal 3 and not 5, Terminal 3 is where the American Airlines flights go out of. So it's possible that it got on the next flight home, which is in the air now because it would land, the flights are the same, would land around 1:05 p.m. here in Philly. So it's possible that it's on the flight right now. But the thing is, it's like a bunch of I Shoot Raw shirts. It has my dirty clothes. It has my chargers for my Canon cameras, because I put it in there knowing that I split the chargers when I went, because it's better that it happens on the way home than on the way going. So I made sure I had what I needed.
Sure.
So
it's basically a bag full of miscellaneous kind of crap that you just threw in that you didn't have room for.
I mean, it has accessories. It has my monopod, some protein, and that's about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the bag to lose. So
yeah. And so I didn't get upset. People are like, I'd be so upset. I'll be like, I'm not upset. It's on the way home. I see where the bag is. They're going to locate it. If they don't, they're going to pay me money, because I'm going to charge them $400 per charger, because that's what they cost. I'm going to charge them the $200 for the physical bag. I'm going to charge them $35, $40 for each I Shoot Raw shirt, $100 for my pair of pants, because that's what they each cost. I'm going to charge them whatever, and I'm going to run up the price to what it should be and get a check for that.
It'd be a much worse situation, like you said, if it was on the way to Kenya where you lost everything. Coming home, I don't think I'd throw a hissy fit.
Yeah. All right. There's a lot of work for me to catch up on. I have no idea what the end of the year, photo news fix I got to do, but there's not going to be a lot of shit for the for the end of the year, really.
I know we're doing one more Raw Talk next week, but most likely after that, it's either going to be a
I'll just do
flying
my own
solo, or we're just going to.
Yeah.
We usually skip that last week, but that's up to you.
Yeah, unless I know some people like when I fly, just do like daily fro style.
Whatever you want to do.
So that's where we'll leave it, guys. Anything you want to end with, Steven?
That is it. Next week, I will be talking about my Christmas photo shoot and how that went, and we'll go from there.
All right, guys, that's episode 131, my trip recap. Thank you very much for listening. Jared, PolinFurnosphoto.com. See ya.
Bye.